All right, so good evening to you, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are at whatever time you are. And this is our 22nd installment in the series that we call Remove Environmental Risks from the Transaction. And by that, we mean the commercial real estate transaction. By the number, you can see that we have 22 installments before that. And we have lots of other videos on our website, and you are invited and welcome to visit them. And even more so, you are always welcome to connect directly with me. First, our website is www.amiradini.com, and you are welcome to call me direct at 323-899-5001, or write to me. By the way, this is call or text me. And my email is amia@amiradini.com. So feel free to communicate and ask questions. And because there is a lot to this subject that I can give you 200 videos and it will not cover it all. So in this installment, which I'm trying to make them comfortable and convenient for you to listen. So we cut it's a big subject, and we cut it into small installments to match the attention level of our audience, attention span, I should say. And I'm trying to judge by my own personal attention span. I know where mine is. So I'm trying to fit it, and I hope I'm not making a grave error by doing it too long or too short. So the subject of the day is the Phase 2 ESA. ESA means Environmental Site Assessment. And Phase 2 means that there is a Phase 1 before Phase 2, and quite a number of our presentations talk about Phase 1 and the difference between Phase 1 and Phase 2. At this moment, what we know and remember is that there is a Phase 1, and then if needed, there comes the Phase 2 ESA, Environmental Site Assessment. The subject of the current installment is cost and time. I think that's basically, this is a universal subject that most people talk about it. I don't want to mention the third subject. This is not the time and place, but there are three subjects that people talk about it, and two of the three are usually time and money, all right? So we are talking here about cost and time. This is the subject of the day, as cost and time as they relate to the Phase 2 environmental site assessment. So we have over 30 videos in this series, and I encourage you and invite you to look at any of them, and of course call me and ask me questions. I've been doing it, and by it I mean the Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments, and contamination cleanup and abatement since 1988. Maybe I should clarify real quick the difference between cleanup and abatement. When you clean up something, it connotates, it means more of a radical solution. You just move it away. You clean up the room, you take all the dirt out, okay? You leave no dirt behind, okay? That's a cleanup. But then there is abatement. Abatement means to make something less. So you clean the room, but you leave some dirt behind, okay? Which is acceptable to whomever gave you the project, okay? So abatement is to make less. So when we deal with contamination, we do either cleanup or abatement. Cleanup is expensive, abatement is less expensive, of course, than cleanup. And many times it's much more practical to do abatement to reduce the level of the contamination instead of removing it altogether. And we do a lot of free introductory consultations. So we invite you to call us always at 323-899-5001, or write me at amiradini.com. And the SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration, they have this Bible, SOP 50-10-6. 6 means the sixth revision or sixth update. And so SOP 50-10-6. And this is the Bible of how to manage basically the transactions that SBA stands behind. And SBA stands behind I should say probably most of the commercial real estate transactions nowadays, and the conventional institutional lenders that provide these loans, they're getting those loans through the SBA or backed up by the SBA. So they go also by this Bible, which is the SOP 5010-6. And in it, there is this chapter called Environmental Policies and Procedures. So there are environmental policies and procedures that apply to absolutely all transactions, commercial transactions that are done by the EPA. And when you go there, there is a checklist and you check out certain characteristics of the transaction, and you will find out that probably most of the commercial real estate transactions fall into the range of these procedures that require submission of environmental investigation reports. So most of the transactions are done by backup of the SBA, as the SBA require environmental investigation reports. And these reports are called Transaction Screen, Phase 1 and Phase 2 ESAs. ESA means Environmental Site Assessment. The little s means plural, okay? So we have transaction screens, Phase 1 and Phase 2 ESAs, Environmental Site Assessments, must, bold letters, must be performed by an environmental professional. So all of these procedures, these investigations that SBA requires, and by the way, transaction screen is seldom done today, very seldom. Most of the investigations start with the Phase 1 environmental site assessment, and as needed, they move to the Phase 2. But most of them start with the Phase 1 environmental site assessment, and these must be done, bold letters, must be performed by an environmental professional. So who or what is an environmental professional? And the SBA, being a U.S. administration, U.S. government administration, of course, yields to the EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, to tell us who or what is an environmental professional. And they have a special rule, and in it there is a definition. And if you go there and you can put the search words, EPA, environmental professional, and it will take you there, and it will tell you, and you'll see a couple of pages full of characteristics of the environmental professional. And the EPA will tell you there who qualifies as environmental professional, and what certification or license are needed, and what education is needed, and what experience is needed. And not only that, what is the definition of relevant experience, because not every experience qualifies a person to be an environmental professional. They can be maybe a very good civil engineer or soil engineer or even a geologist, okay? But they may not have these additional characteristics, so that qualifies them to be an environmental professional. So in terms of the experience, I should say. So there has to be a relevant experience. As far as me, or moi, as far as me, I graduated in 1964 with a Bachelor of Science here in Mechanical Engineering. That looks like yesterday. And Mechanical Engineering, Bachelor of Science, with additional credits in Nuclear and Chemical Engineering, and then spent the next 20 years partly in nuclear reactors, partly in chemical plants, eventually graduated to become a California general engineering contractor. As a general engineering contractor, in theory, I can do almost anything. I can build you an Empire State Building, I can build bridges, I can do roads, I can do, I don't know, a lot of things. And everything that comes to mind, almost a general engineering contractor can contract for. But within this huge range, I specialized as a contractor in the hazardous substance removal certification. So removed a lot of hazardous substances since 1989. During this process, also qualified by the California EPA as a registered environmental assessor level 2. And when they qualified me as a level 2, they recognize that I have completed all the requirements for the most stringent level of environmental registration provided by the state. And as an REA2, as an REA2, I am qualified to be a project manager that can conduct all assessments and investigations, plus issue cleanup opinions, evaluate risk from contamination, and manage the cleanup of contaminated sites. So that's a lot to be qualified for. And as much as I'm proud in having been qualified by the state of California in such a wide range, in high range, I should tell you that I was not, and I'm not the only one. It will be a little bit, how they say, too vain on my end to tell you that I'm the only one, which I'm not. There are a good number of highly qualified environmental professionals out there. I consider them to be good colleagues, even though competitors, but they are good colleagues. We love to interact with each other, and they are there. So when you do your projects, just make sure that you do it through a good, qualified environmental professional. Here is a recent project that I had the privilege to manage, A to Z, right from the phase 1, phase 2 of the investigation, and then the additional investigation and additional. We drilled through this site forever, and we sampled it, and then we came to demolish it as part of the remediation, demolished all the structures here. It was a Terminix site. It was contaminated with the pesticides. Every piece of concrete that you see here is impregnated with a pesticide, and the soil is contaminated. And you see our guys here spraying water. And the reason is, when you look up and see this huge monster here, which has this hydraulic hammer, and you don't see it in the picture, but it punches into the hits into the concrete so as to break it into these little pieces that you see here, because this is the condition of the landfill where we take it. They want it to be broken to these little pieces. So every time we hit it with this huge, monstrous hammer, you get a cloud of dust coming out. Just take a hammer and a chisel and hammer concrete with your own bare hands, and you will see the dust coming up. Imagine how much dust is coming when this monster is hitting the concrete. And all this dust is impregnated with pesticides, which are carcinogens, and they are flying around. This dust is flying. We don't want our workers to inhale dust that has carcinogenic element in it. Even more so, we don't want this dust to fly out here to the neighbors, their children, families here. We don't want to fly. So what we do, all around the site, we place our monitors, specialized monitors, and they monitor the dust in the air every minute of the day when we operate. And whenever the dust goes above a very, low and critical level in the air, we get an alarm and we stop down the operation until the dust settles down. So it was a pretty, complex and careful, and we had a lot of attention on the dust here, and we did it. And right now the site is clean, and there is a beautiful 16-unit apartment building there. It's in the neighborhood of Silver Lake in Los Angeles, beautiful neighborhood, and everybody is happy. So we talked before, and we'll mention it again now, the phase 2, the objective of the phase 2 environmental site assessment is basically is to find out if the concerns are real, or are they real, are they significant, yes or no. Phase 2 is a yes or no answer. We do all the sampling that we do in the phase 2 is just to find out if the property is contaminated. Phase 2 will not tell us, many times, I should say, it will not tell us the complete scope of the contamination, but it will tell us if there is a problem there. It will not tell us the magnitude of the problem. It's a yes or no. Phase 1, we said, okay, we are worrying about, we think there may be contamination. Phase 2 is a yes, there is contamination, or no, there is no contamination. So how much does it cost? And the subject of today is cost and time of the phase 2. And our Voltaire friend, 1694, 1778. So he lived to be what? Let me see, what is it? 12 plus? No, 6 plus 78, 84 years. Oh, that's a nice age. So Voltaire, famous Voltaire, said, don't think money does everything, or you're always going to end up doing everything for money. That's a nice lesson. So we have our concentration here. We are talking about money. So this is what Voltaire tell us about money. And the cost of phase 2. So cost of a phase 2 typically ranges from anywhere from, I would say, a minimum of 5,000 to a maximum of 25,000. I'm giving you general range. There are exceptions. In every case, we should look into it, but this is something for you that you can think with, all right? It's not $1 million and it's not $10. It's a conceptual range that you can think with, anywhere from 5,000 to 25,000. That's the typical cost of a phase 2. Where contamination is detected, the stakeholders, which are the lenders, the sellers, the buyers, sometimes forego the deal. They say, well, okay, I don't want to know more. You will be surprised. Sometimes the seller, the owner says, forget about it. I don't want to know anything more about it, okay? I'm going to stick my head in the sand and wait a few more years and then sell it when the standards of contamination will change, all right? So, and I know several cases like this. They let the deal go by the wayside, and they stay with the property and keep operating the property, and they are not selling it. And so this is just because of the phase 2. The lenders, if we detect contamination and we say we have, as a consultant, we tell them, look, it is significant or insignificant. If we say that the contamination is significant, meaning we need to do more work to find out the exact scope, the lenders will say we are not lending. Either you do more and more and more and more, or you get us until you get us a letter, a clean bill of health from the government. But right now, Ami Adini says the property is contaminated. Ami Adini says the contamination is cannot be ignored. We are not lending. And of course, the buyers many times forego the deal, or sometimes they buy. I have cases where they bought contaminated properties at a large discount, and then they continued on their own to do what they wanted to do. So it is, how they say, a crossroad, the results of the phase 2. So when contamination is detected, the stakeholders, sometimes they forego the deal. If they elect to know more on the extent of the contamination, they conduct an extended phase 2 environmental site assessment. Sometimes they call it phase 3. That's the name, but it's an extended, meaning going for more. We want to know more. We know it is contaminated, and I've had, and I'm still having cases that we detected contamination and we are going for more. We want to know more, right? So the cost of an extended phase 2 ESA could range from 20,000 to 80,000 for properties that are smaller than 1 acre in size. And then again, please don't hold me into it as this is not, how would I say, accurate mathematics, all right? It's just to give you an idea, to give you like a order of magnitude. So extended phase 2 could be anywhere from 20,000 to 80,000. for properties that are smaller than 1 acre. If extensive investigations on vast areas, if the area is vast, let's say it is a huge industrial plant, it is a huge refinery, it's big, okay? It can run into $200,000 or more, these extended investigations. And we have done it. We have had a property in the city of Bell Gardens. And by the time we were done, I think it was in the range of $250,000. But guess what? Our client bought it at $3.5 million. And 3 years later, they sold it at $6.5 million with all of our reports in hand and a letter from the regulatory agencies giving them a clean bill of health. So they invested a $250,000 in it, and they sold it for $3 million more. So it all depends. And here is my disclaimer, which says these dollar numbers are not carved in stone. They are stated only to provide a concept on the magnitude of the expenses. The real numbers in real situations can vary significantly. Use these figures only as conceptual illustrations and consult with experts for the real cost in real situations. The time. Now we're moving to the time. We talked about cost, now we talk about time. So Leonardo da Vinci, 1452, 1519. So what is like 48 plus 19? That's like what, 67? 67 years. Okay, well, that's good for Middle Ages type era. So Leonardo da Vinci says time stays long enough for those who use it. As long as you use your time, you will have enough time on your hand, but use it, all right? So the time, all right? There is this element that is called no further action, NFA, no further action determination from a regulatory agency. And I should caution you that when we talk phase 1 and phase 2, and if we find contamination in phase 2, you and the lender will have to make a decision based on our recommendations, findings and recommendations, okay? Because let's say there is contamination, and then we come to you and say, you know what, there is contamination, but we think that is insignificant, and your lender says, well, Ami, whatever you say is not good enough for me. The lender says, we want a letter from the agency, from a regulatory agency. We want an NFA letter. Ami, you are a good fellow. We've known you for 20 years, but that's not enough. I mean, we want a regulator to tell us that this is good. Well, you take it to the regulatory agency to get no further action. I mean, all limits are off, okay? Everything is off because by the time you get there, you get in and you get out, you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 years maybe. It will take, it's a very long process. And by the time the regulator tells you that what I said that made sense and really no further action is required, by that time you will have spent another $200,000, maybe even more. So you need to know that in most of the phase 2s, when we say, look, here is the contamination, we think it's insignificant, we think you can go for it, we think there will be no regulatory action on it, you need to decide if you're going to rely on our determination. And this will determine the eventual time and cost of your project. So this is what I have to say about no further action. And we have had several projects, quite a few of them, that we went through the regulatory route. And I know this route very, very well. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm not saying do it or don't do it. Sometimes it has to be done. Sometimes it doesn't have to be done. And each case, we judge it on its own merits. So time schedule. Phase 1 and phase 2 time schedule. Okay. Phase 1, we say, give us 3 weeks. I know some consultants will tell you they will do it for 10 business days. I can do it in 10 business days, but please give me 3 weeks, okay? 3 weeks is optimal. So I can sleep at night and I can write you a good report with no mistakes, all right? So phase 1 reports about 3 weeks. Then what we find, and I'm telling you these times because when you enter into escrow, you need to understand what is the time scale. Because when we give our phase 1 report to the client, then the client reviews it and they give it to the lender goes back and forth, and let's say we find something in the report and they review it. It can take them anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to say if it is good or bad, not bad actually, if it's sufficient or insufficient in accordance with their needs, all right? And then let's say we need a phase 2 to do, okay? So they say, and they come to me and say, well, let me give us a proposal for a phase 2. Well, wait a week, 1 week, I'll get you a proposal. And then I give you a proposal, and then by the time you award me, if you award me, hopefully, it takes you another 2 to 4 weeks, because by the time buyer and seller and lender, everybody is negotiating as to who is going to bear the cost. So there's a lot of talks about it. And then to do the phase 2 work and issue a report, it's another 3 weeks, and then you review it, subtotal 13 to 19 weeks. Okay, so all of this thing, again, it's not carved in stone, it can be shortened, but when you get into this area, leave yourself enough time. Okay, don't enter escrow and come to me and say, Ami, I've got 10 days escrow, do it all, okay? Because I will be able to do something for you in 10 days, but then what if I come up with some results that need further time? So leave yourself time, leave yourself contingencies. And then if we do the phase 2 and then you want us to do an extended phase 2, it adds more and more and more weeks. So best, if you can, do it before you enter escrow, all right? And these words are, of course, directed at the sellers. If you are the seller, try to do it before you enter escrow, so you don't have surprises during escrow. And yes, time equal money, we know that. And okay, so there is an alternative, and we have done it quite often. And when there is no regulatory process or no oversight of regulatory, we can move fast. We can do what we call a preliminary phase 1 in 2 weeks. Before we issue even the report, in like 2 weeks into the work, we know already what the recommendations will be, and we can give you a quick informal letter. And if you need a phase 2, you tell us, okay, go ahead with the phase 2. We do right away the phase 2. And the whole thing can be shortened a lot from what I told you before. If you want to move fast, before we can move faster without completing the reports. That's what I'm trying to say. We can have the results before we complete the official formal reports, and then at the end we will issue the report. So it can be done faster. That's basically the end of this presentation, and thank you very much. I imagine that you may have some questions, and because I spoke a little bit fast here and there, so call me or text me at 323-899-5001. You will find that I'm always available. I'm happy to talk to you, and I'm happy to communicate with you by email, ami@amiadini.com. Again, go to our website, amiadini.com, and thank you very much for listening. I'll see you at the next presentation.